Welcome back, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, to In the Eyes of Truth, the English edition. And today with us is the one and only, the ever famous Tim Kirby. In
Hello
English
there.
this time, not in Russian. So,
Yes, in English this time, yeah, much easier. So I'm always thrilled when I get the opportunity to do anything in English at this point.
Your forefathers were the salt of the earth, but they understood that that earth did not need the salt of their tears. Be it the tyranny of heartless elites, kings and emperors drafting fathers and sons to their endless wars, persecution by the godless revolutionaries, or a dozen other reasons. They made the hard decision. They picked up their families and headed to new lands, to new opportunities and sometimes new dangers, crossing oceans and a wild frontier. They faced incredible challenges and traumas, and they succeeded. And now, generations later, it is you who finds himself in the same shoes at a similar crossroads as your forefathers. It is you who knows that the land you call home is no longer recognizable as home. That all your hard work, what was built over generations, is just another pandemic away from being seized. The freedoms your forefathers fought for are hanging on by a shoestring, with globalist billionaires and conglomerates coveting your land. As the powers that be may plan to draft your sons and your daughters for their foreign adventures. It doesn't matter if you're American, Canadian, or Australian. Your children's future is no longer bright. You're the new Afrikaners marked for expropriation. The militantly woke no longer have a place for your faith in God or your big families, and they're coming for your land and the water rights that have sustained your family farm, your way of life. What is to be done? And where do you turn? There is hope. There is a land, the last great Christian land that loves farmers, loves big families, and loves God. A place where land is bountiful and very affordable. The government's not intrusive, taxes are low, and your faith and big families are not only welcomed, but celebrated. That land is Russia. And ExitStrategy.world is here to help you make this hopeful future a reality. We will assist you in organizing your move, opening new accounts, moving your hard-earned wealth across borders, procuring farmland and documents. A prosperous future belongs to those with the courage to show up for it. ExitStrategy.world. ExitStrategy.world, the new Mayflower of the 21st century.
so for those of you who don't know who Tim is, Tim, for those one or two individuals that still don't know you, 5 words.
Five
Tim
words.
Kirby.
American guy, Russia, media works. I don't know. I work in the media in Russia, and I have for a hell of a long time. So I'm kind of a C-list celebrity in Russia there, and yeah. So that's kind of who I am. Or as they like to say on the mainstream media, American-born Russian journalist Tim Kirby. Although I never really call myself a journalist, but I just don't want to fight it anymore.
I don't either. I
Yeah.
have the people call me a major, even though I got to major's rank, but I turned it down. I was a captain promoter.
Mm,
But after a while, it's like, okay, whatever.
yeah, good enough.
It's just you correct people 40 times, like fine, whatever. Please
Well, it's
make me
just
a
journalist
general.
is a good journalist is just a good one-word answer rather
Yeah,
than being like, well, I do media projects, I'm kind of the host of shows, and maybe some of this does involve journalism, and that's just a terrible answer. It takes too
oh
long
yeah,
and no
yeah,
one cares. But yeah.
yeah. I started doing journalism, and I do a lot of interviews and things like that too. Plus, I'm on TV, so I'm like, I usually end up with military political expert.
Oh, well, there you go. That's better. That's good.
Half the
That's
people don't
short.
know what you're talking about, so like, oh, okay, just let
Good
it go.
enough.
Good enough. It's like, yeah, you can tell somebody, I'm an accountant. Nobody will ever ask you anything else about your job after that.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about that. But yeah, yeah, that's a not an ideal job. Ironically, in Russia, that's a women's profession.
More
One of those
often than
weird
not,
cultural things. Yeah. But
I've known,
anyways,
I've
we
known
want to talk about
women.
something I think more important than accounting and gender.
Yes, I do. I want to know the air velocity of an unladen swallow in flight.
Oh no, you asked me that before we started. I have no idea. I'm sorry.
And
I
that,
got
ladies and
nothing.
gentlemen, is the degradation of Western culture. Monty
Oh, okay.
Python. Your answer should be African or European. At which point I go, well, I don't know.
Ah,
Okay,
that's from like the Troll or something. Ah, okay.
as the guy
I
on the
never
bridge.
saw those movies, but I'm sort of I knew people who really, really liked them in college. So I've sort of heard all the jokes at some point.
Yeah, I'm one of those.
Hmm.
We used
No,
to,
there's nothing wrong with it, man. I don't mind. The first time, it's one of those weird things. The first time I watched, what was that movie? A Spinal Tap. I really
yeah,
liked it. And then the second time I didn't. It was weird. It was kind of like a magical effect. So I can dig British humor from time to time. I'm not opposed to it.
yeah.
So,
My wife, when we got married, she couldn't figure out what the hell. Me and my friends are quoting Monty Python a lot and all of that. She's like, well, what is it? I'm like, it's a series of movies. British humor.
mm,
And British humor is dry for the most part. So we sat down once to try to watch Monty Python with the Quest for the Holy Grail with her. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
she got through the first time she got through 10 minutes of it before she fell asleep.
Ah, I got you.
About
Well,
2 years later, she said, let's try it again out of the blue. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. I like the movies. That time she got to the point where I'm being oppressed. Come see them being oppressed. Come see the oppression. Inherent oppression of the state. You know that. At which point
uh,
she's got this look on her face, like you're not
let's
enjoying
see.
this, are you? No. Want to change the channel? Yes.
Well, that's
Okay.
one of those things. It's like, the humor is very, I think, yeah, Monty Python's more like kind of a guy humor in a little bit. Like, yeah, it's
True.
definitely not for women. So their
So,
humor's more about life and relationships and the interactions of people, not the Spanish Inquisition. But anyways,
the Spanish Inquisition.
mm,
Fun times. Fun times. Speaking of which,
yeah.
let's talk about your project.
Okay.
That has absolutely nothing to do with
So
torturing people on the wheel or making them confess.
no, 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 nothing of the sort. Well, so anyways, to get into it and just to, not take too much time. Basically, if a Western
Take your
foreign
time.
person, well, for over many years, a lot of people from the West have contacted me and been like, I want to move to Russia. And essentially, my answer to them has always been, you can't because the system won't let you, especially if you're married with kids. The system says, no, you're not needed here. You could really only get married as a Westerner, really only get married to a Russian citizen and move here, via marriage. You basically need some sort of like legal or what I call legal foothold to get in the system. That is not what it's called in Russian. It's called osnova or osnovani or whatever. It's like the
That's not
legal
mine.
basis,
Yeah.
but that sounds weird in English. So, anyways, you need this basis or foothold, and that's usually being married. One of the other ones would be being born in the Soviet Union, so on and so forth. Right. And so I've had to tell people year after year after year, nah, sorry, man, it doesn't work like that. You can't come here. Oh, but I'm really, really faithful. I'm an Orthodox Christian and I have 7 kids and I'd love to live in Russia. Sorry. So at some point, I had a conversation with Father Joseph Gleason, the American born Russian Orthodox priest who lives up north. And we had a conversation in his kitchen, and that's where the idea was born between the two of us. So this is half my idea, half his idea. And then over time, I got to meet Russia's top migration lawyer, Timur Beslangurov, and he kind of joined up on this whole thing. And long story short, thanks to having a really good migration lawyer with a lot of connections, you're sort of able to put together this program where you buy land, you buy a house, which normally foreign people can't do for the most part. There's some land and houses they can buy, but definitely not all of it, kind of a select minority. So you
Wait,
can
wait,
buy
wait, wait.
whatever, buy a place in the Moscow region. That also buys you a place in the horrific migration quota, and that allows you to begin a life in Russia without having to get married to a Russian citizen. So that's ultimately like the gist of the project.
I've got a couple corrections on that.
Yeah.
But wait, a non-Russian citizen can buy any apartment, any house he wants. What he can't buy
No,
is
well, no, 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 no,
agricultural
no,
land.
no, 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 no. That depends on the zoning, my friend. Apartments, yes. Apartments are full game. When
Yes.
it comes to land issues, ooh, that is a mysterious, very frustrating, unclear ballgame of extremely high risk. You can't let that kind of information go out there. Some single, like what we would call single family residence
Right.
zoning, the Russian equivalent of that, you can generally buy that, but again, it's very selective. Well, but when
Oh,
I get
I've
approached by
bought it,
people,
and I've known people have
hold
bought
on.
it. That-
When I get approached by people time and time again, because this is another thing,
Mhm.
people keep asking me, no one wants to live in the city. They don't want to live in an apartment, and they really generally don't want to live in some house in frickin' Sherbinka that's like on 40 square meters of land that's crushed next to a lot of buildings. They want land. And generally, that big, fat, open land is not accessible to foreign people.
Like I said, you can't buy agricultural land. You could buy land in the middle of a forest, but you can't buy agricultural land.
Well,
You can
forests are another issue because
if
most of
it's
the time
private
the
land.
forests are actually controlled by the Ministry of Forestry or Natural Resources or something. So it's really difficult to develop forest land,
It's true.
especially in the Moscow region. It is. I'll put it this way: it ain't happening.
Well, you can when you buy forested land, before you can cut down old growth trees. I mean,
Yeah,
little saplings, whatever, nobody's going to care about. Nobody's going to notice. But any major trees you cut down, you have to go get actual permission to cut them down. Which is, by the way, the
yeah,
same thing you have in Oregon State and in Washington State. Uh,
yeah. And it depends
yeah,
how many have to come to get cut down. So that means more permissions. It's a whole thing.
yeah.
So yeah. So again, it's one of these things where a lot of people think they can just like buy whatever the hell they want in Russia, and in a lot of ways you can just build whatever the hell you want, which is nice. But foreign people don't really have the right to just buy whatever they want like Russians do, and that's another part of this project. But ultimately, the whole point is to buy the ability to have a place in the migration quota. That's ultimately what it all boils down to.
Now, what I went through, because I'm by birth from Lugansk, but Lugansk
Yeah,
wasn't part of Russia at that point.
yeah.
Um, what what got you the it didn't actually buying a house didn't get you a point automatically in the migration quota. What it did was move you to the top of the line
Mm,
because you have a place to live. So you're not
yeah,
just going to be some foreigner who's going to be bumming around after that without a place to live. You have a place to live, so obviously you probably have an income if you have a place
yeah,
to
yeah.
live. But you still have to go talk to the migration people at the office and tell them why you want to live in. They'll do a little interview with you. It's a little BS interview, but you
Yeah.
still have to do that. But it gets you up to the front. But it doesn't work in Moscow and it doesn't work in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
It works
Well,
in the small cities and in the
mhm.
countryside.
Well, we have a special agreement. So Timur and I worked it out with the
Mhm.
governor and his staff of the Moscow region, with the guarantor of this agreement being Rosatruychestvo, that the people who do this special program get a place in the migration quota. So we're
Oh,
talking
good.
about a sort of specialist exception that's
Hmm.
part of a program. Yeah, but everyone essentially to immigrate has to live, in theory, live somewhere, right? They have to have a
Right.
place where they're registered to live. And of course, having your own home is also a benefit to that. But yeah, because very often landlords won't do it, which a lot of foreign people refuse to accept, and then they come here and they fuck up their lives. But I can't be responsible because I warn people about that all the time and they don't listen. In fact, there are like two or three people right now that are sort of like kind of fans of my work who I know are going through that issue at the moment. So you got to really, I'll put it this way, that's another reason to buy a house in Russia, because then you don't have to deal with any of that BS. It's yours, you own it, and you're registered there, and it's fantastic.
What Tim's just to give a little more information on that when you come into Russia, you have to be registered by if you don't own your own land, I mean, or your own house. It can't just
Mhm.
be land. You just can't buy a chunk of land. It has to
Yeah,
actually have a dwelling on that land that you
yeah.
can live in. You can't just say, "Hey,
A
here's my
dwelling that the government considers a home.
right," not a trailer. By the way, trailer homes in Russia don't exist.
No.
They're not. I mean, they may exist, but they're not considered homes. Trailer
Yeah, yeah.
parks don't exist. So yeah, that's right. A dwelling that is actually considered a home. So you can't put a shed there and go, "Hey, it's my home." Well, no, that's not a
Yeah.
house. So the government will have a say in that. When you, first of all, just so people understand, um, for the quickest route, uh, the the best the best way for the quickest route to get onto the quota system is not to be in Moscow and not to be in St. Petersburg and probably not to be in the Yekaterinburg. You need best places to be in the countryside
Mhm.
or be in one of the smaller cities.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, one of the problems is remember, I know this inside and out, and what you're saying, it makes sense on the surface, but there are many regions in Russia where the migration quota is like 20 people a year.
right, that's also
And so
true.
even if you try to like beat the game by going somewhere where there's less interest in immigration, the quotas are so tiny that you still can't get in. There's really the idea of trying to like beat the quota is just really not very viable. Timur can even tell you the tale of one American guy he knew who tried on his own to get through the migration quota of the Moscow region 17 times and failed 17 times. Only after sort of like using his services and Timur trying to like get in there and really negotiate this thing out with the powers that be, that he got accepted on the 18th time. But so, and also the migration services that aren't around Moscow and St. Petersburg and the region that goes around both of them are just usually dismal. It's even worse.
Depending where you're at, true. I'll tell you this. First of all, this isn't across the board for everyone. It's very much depending on your country. If your country doesn't have a visa requirement with Russia, Brazil, for example, Tajikistan, a lot of the work labor migrants, they come in from Central Asia. They don't have visa requirements. So any country that does not have visa requirements with Russia, Brazil being one of those countries, you can come in and you can get a patent for work, a work patent. You have to have basic Russian. It's not a very high level of Russian, trust me,
No.
to get through the very basic exam. But for people, for those types of people, you can get a patent, which allows you to work. You have to find a job and hire and sign a contract with whomever takes you on. And then while you're at that, that legalizes you, and then you can go ahead and try to go through the quota system. One other way to get to citizenship in Russia.
But one thing I just want to point out, those patents are no, the patents don't give you any rights to immigrate. That's why they
Right.
created them.
Right, but while you're on
Yeah.
a patent system, you can put in for RVP, which is
Yeah,
temporary
you can try
residency.
to like make them repeat
Right.
over and over and over and over again, but man, that is one hell of a process.
Well, it's for some people.
Yeah, it's for desperate migrant workers.
Well,
You know.
desperate migrant workers, a lot of them got citizenship
Mm.
through the patent system. But again, patent systems is pretty limited. You've got outside of Central Asia, the two top countries that come to mind with that can get patents is Brazil and South Africa.
Mm.
And I'm not sure, there are probably a few other countries, but it's a relatively short list.
Yeah.
If you're Ukrainian, you can as long as you can prove that you were living in Ukraine, not that you have a Ukrainian passport, but you also have a registered Ukraine, you can get a straight to citizenship pretty fast.
Yeah. That is
Uh,
true. Yes, correct. Mm.
if your country is part of the Eurasian Union, you can live in Russia as long as you want. It's like the European Union, and they can go to
Yeah.
each other's countries. So Belarus, Tajikistan, countries like that. Americans have the easiest out of the countries that require visas. Because
Mm.
Americans can get a 3-year multi-entry visa that allows you to stay 180 days, out for 1 day, and back 180 days. Which is
Yeah, that's a nice setup. Yes.
it is. Nobody else gets that, which is interesting. That's how.
Well, that's because it's reciprocal because the United States offered that to Russian citizens.
Did it?
That was the deal from the Obama regime. But one thing I just wanted to for your viewers, which is important, is guys, this thing about the patents. I know it's because here's the problem, Stas. People they hear the positive side of something and they jump on it when it
True.
comes to Russian immigration. About this patent thing, guys, it may be theoretically possible. It ain't gonna happen. You're not gonna be able to do it. You're not gonna be able to beat the Sakharov migration center like a lot of these Tajik guys are, who can sort of keep doing this patent thing over and over and ad nauseum. It ain't gonna happen, and no one is gonna hire you with patents. What those things are for is they are a sort of compromise to allow like grunt laborers on like job sites to be able to work here, but then have no rights to immigration. That's the whole point of it. It's to keep you eternally like the Mexican guy on the back of a pickup truck who's asking to work in someone's backyard for the weekend. That's the point of them. So it's not a viable method.
Well, what the patent is, since they don't know exactly. Well, it's gotten much tougher right now. and it's got much
No,
more
not
regimented.
surprisingly. To be honest, that whole thing needs to be at some point eliminated. I think we really have to, after the war is over, sit down and really think, how are we going to do this going forward? But that doesn't concern Western people. That's a different issue.
Um, the patent. Well, right now I've got a guy that works for me who's on a patent, but I've got to get him registered. That's a
Yeah.
whole. It's actually got become much different than it used to be. Well, the patent
Yeah.
was original because you had all these guys coming in from mostly Central Asia, and
Yeah.
they were doing work here and there, and the government wasn't collecting any taxes. Nobody knew anything about, is he making 100 rubles a day or is he making 100,000 rubles a day? Who knows?
Yeah.
So what the
Yeah.
patent was originally for is that you got the patent, and then you pay a monthly renewal for that patent, right? You
Yeah.
pay you pay like a 20,000 ruble fee to get the patent, and then 7,000 rubles every month, or 8,000 rubles every month. So basically, the government's just guessing at what your salary is, and they're taking
Mm.
taxes off of it, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you also have to have medical insurance, which it's relatively cheap, and it really
Yeah.
doesn't cover anything. So like no,
Yeah.
it's one of those check off the block things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have to have a job contract now. If you're not contracted, you will get deported. Sooner or later, you get caught and you'll get deported, and it's up to from a 3 to 5 year ban on reentry.
Mm.
Uh, so you have to have a contract now, and the contract has to get registered. So I've got to drive this contract this week, as a matter of fact, down and get it registered.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
one of those things you got to do. Registered so that they know where the foreigners are,
Mm.
the government, that is.
Yeah.
Now, what happens when you get RVP? Everybody who is in Russia legally has the right to apply for temporary residency. It's the law. Now, having said that, then you get into you got to be there legally when you put the documents in. You got to be there legally when you get the documents back. If you get popped onto that quota system.
Yeah.
If you have a wife, if you have a child, or you have a parent who's a Russian citizen, you bypass it.
Yeah. 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 That's the
If you
way. Yeah.
finish a degree, there's another thing. You come to Russia, you can go get a
Well,
degree
you have to
real
finish the degree with honors, with a red
right.
diploma with honors.
But while you're doing the degree, you can try
Yeah.
to do through the RVP too. But
Oh yeah,
yeah,
there's always that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's as Tim said, it's not an easy system.
No.
And you do have to have basic Russian. If you think you're going to come over here, I speak English.
Yeah.
Good. I speak Portuguese. Good. Yeah, I speak Spanish. Great. And you're
Yeah.
not going to get a job. You know, here's a
Yeah,
shovel.
that's the way it is. A lot of people really underestimate that. Like they don't take it very seriously, and it is dead serious. That's something you really have to do.
Absolutely. There are a few jobs that'll take expats that don't speak much Russian, but half of those are scam jobs in call centers. So
Oh, really? I see. Okay. Well, and
yeah,
also teaching English, which some
yeah.
people like it, but I found that was probably the worst thing I've ever done in terms of a job. I absolutely hated every minute of it. So.
Do you have any interesting students?
Well, it was for the company that ran the Chupa Chups lollipops. That was like I worked for them for a teeny tiny bit, but ultimately it's kind of like a whole like again, you're on YouTube, so I have to use the proper terminology. A sort of like let's just say how can you say this in polite English? Lady of the Night and her overlord. You know what I mean? That's the thing. The overlord gets the majority of the pay and you don't get squat because it's organized by all these organizations. So you're really not treated very well. To teach English in Russia, you really have to become like an independent contractor. But the thing is, Stas, especially last time
Yeah.
I was at Timur's office, there are so many Western people trying to immigrate here. I think at some point the market is going to become so saturated that teaching English won't be viable for anyone anymore because there'll be, 20 candidates for every position. So, yeah.
I think it'll still be viable. It just won't be viable in Moscow and the big cities where everybody wants to live. It'll be
Well, yeah,
viable
well,
in
that's especially
somewhere.
too about where people want to live. That's also a thing too, is that Western people, no matter what they tell me, ultimately, when they really think about how they want to live, they want to live around Moscow and St. Petersburg. They don't want to live anywhere else. And it doesn't matter. I know probably someone's listening. It's like, how do you know? How could you say that? I want to live down south where it's sunny. The migration services will let you live down south, and you don't know really what it's like. So it's one of these things where You kind of have to, I tell people it's best to just start your life in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And if you really, really then want to go down south with citizenship or wherever the hell else you want to go. So,
Krasnodar is actually a pretty good city down south. I know several Americans who live there or live there now.
yeah.
It's a very fast-growing city, but the other cities are more difficult. If you don't have English, if you don't have Russian, they will be much more difficult
Oh,
because
yeah.
nobody's gonna
Oh, yeah.
cater. In the bigger in St. Petersburg and Moscow and Ekaterinburg, they'll cater to you somewhat if you don't speak Russian. In the other cities, no, you got to have Russian.
Yeah. Yes, especially smaller places. Yeah, they're going to. And to
Nobody's
be
gonna
honest,
bring you
what
an
you said,
English
cater.
language
I
menu.
think to be honest, even really working here in Moscow all these years, I don't think they're gonna cater to you in Moscow either. Like maybe on the street, like if you're like, hey, help me, show me where this thing is, someone will try to help you in English. But in terms of work, get good or get out of here. That's like literally how it is. There's very little you could do except for, like I said, teaching English or maybe something where it's for some reason really revolves around English. Yeah.
Well, if you do remote work, yeah, that's not an issue too. If
Well,
you do
yeah, of
remote,
course. There's
now
plenty of people who do that. Yeah.
software development, by the way, also takes a lot of English language people, just
Yeah.
because they've got a lot of those companies have customers outside of Russia, so
That
they
is
do
true.
take English language. So if you're a software developer, IT person, and the jobs actually pay pretty damn well, even
Yeah.
by Russian standards and by Western standards, they pay really damn well. But again, you're limited on the career options if you don't speak Russian.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had
And
a
yeah, in fact, the company in the Mariel Republic that iSpring, they wanted me to try to find them some Western people who could work at their company. I believe they ultimately only hired one person, which is kind of a shame, and it wound up being like an English teacher and not like an actual programmer. So I'm kind of sad about that. So if anyone is a programmer and you'd like to work in the middle of Russia, there's a company willing to hire you and do all the bureaucratic crap related to your visas and all that other stuff. They're called iSpring, and you can hit me up after this video's over. So, anyways, yeah.
and that makes a big difference if they're willing to do the bureaucratic crap for you.
Yeah, that's
Remote
the
work.
thing, and that's why I thought it would be. But the problem is here about Western people. Let's become judgmental here. It's that whole Western thing of like, how should I put it? They're not aggressive enough. Like the people would just be like, who are sort of involved in this. I'd be like, okay, so did you talk to them? Well, I don't know. I sent them an email. They never responded. Dude, fuck, dude. Come the fuck on. Get your ass in gear. Like, especially Stas. Was this is I'm sorry. The thing is I get told from one ear, America's becoming Sodom and Gomorrah. There are fentanyl addicts everywhere. I'm afraid that because of this whole alphabet soup rainbow world, they're gonna cut my kid's dick off. Okay, so I hear that in one ear. Then later in the other ear, I hear, oh, well, I don't know. They didn't respond to my email. Well, do you really want to move here or don't you? You know what I mean? Like that shit. So this is the kind of stuff where I've become a Russian racist. Where sort of like when Russian comedians and stuff make fun of Americans, that's like very typical in our behavior. And we deserve to be made fun of that. It's unbelievable. Everyone was like that. Well, they didn't respond, or I don't know. It's like, be aggressive.
Well,
Like in America,
yeah,
people try to hire you. In Soviet Russia, you take job for yourself, blad. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Oh, I know. It's well, Americans. I don't want to say Americans, Westerns in general. They have this
Yeah.
passive aggressive thing going. Uh,
Yeah, that. Yeah,
because
yeah,
being aggressive is bad, which means
yeah,
being a go-getter is bad. We'll clip your nuts already. You chemically clip them or socially clip them before we have to really clip them. And
yeah,
then,
yeah.
and you gotta admit, most people in the West are so passive aggressive these days. But
Yeah,
they,
that's exactly it. Well, there's a lot of ways to Stas. It's because everyone knows that if you actually lash out in any sort of way, you'll be punished. You know what I mean? So I kind of
yeah,
understand a little bit where it comes from our totalitarian state. But it doesn't matter. In Russia, the rules are different, and I've noticed that in Russia, the problem is Russians generally hate the word aggression or aggressive. That's a bad word. It always has a bad context. So I try to not use it. But I would say I don't know, maybe very. Why is Truman trying to call me while I'm calling you? Very harshly decisive. Maybe
yes,
that might be a better way to say it.
yes,
Like because those I've seen it in Russia. People in Russia who are really passive, They sit in the one-room apartment they got from their grandmother and they play World of Tanks. And that's their life. That is it. And maybe they have a beer on the weekend. All people in Russia who are successful are very take from life type of
No,
people.
you got to be
So
a
yeah,
go-getter. Well, I mean,
yeah,
that used to be the norm in I won't say all of the West, but in the Anglo-West, that used to be the norm.
yeah.
And it, in the 80s, that's how people were. In the 90s, it started going down. And then after that, it just went into social neutering, like
Yeah.
chemical
Well,
neutering.
I heard someone, I can't remember who said this. This isn't my idea. I got it from somewhere else, but they sort of said the worst thing that we as Americans ever did was in the 1950s. We decided that if we just shut up and play along, everything will be fine. That's the
Yeah,
pathway to success.
yeah.
And yeah, and to be honest, also, when I talk to people on the other side of things, really whiny and complaining Russians, they have sort of the opposite thing of that. They're like, but in the Soviet Union, everything was free and the education was free and this thing was free. Everything was free, but you had to work 40 hours a week minimum. And if you didn't, you got thrown in jail. So that's your free stuff. So like this stuff, that same type of person does exist in Russia. There's plenty of them, but for some reason in Russia, it's maybe there's a different percentage of them, or the losers in Russia just get so crushed that you don't even see them. I don't quite know how to explain it. Whereas in America, like when you're in white Protestant land, everyone is terrified that their lawn might be just a little bit too big and or too long, and they'll have to start paying maybe fines, or someone might notice, and everyone is so stressed out and they're terrified and crushed behind their smile. You know what I mean? So in Russia, you don't get that. Sorry to go on a kind of racist rant here, but when we're talking about these issues, I need to shock people, because a lot of Western people who they want to come to Russia, but they sort of don't like get these things. That
No, they
like
don't.
Russia
They
is more
don't.
of a, again, the Russians don't like the word aggression. It's a decisiveness based society. I
Yeah,
want to say aggression based society, but decisiveness based society. And if you can't deal with that, you're going to be in deep trouble. It took me a while to adapt to it, and I'm from a pretty harsh fucking place. So,
it's more of I think the better term for it is alpha male.
maybe
It's more
I
alpha
don't
male.
know. Yeah.
Even the beta males are more alpha than what you get in the West.
Kind of. Well,
It's
I don't know. Dude, like I've been read certain like Western authors where they try to say that somehow Russia is deep down like a matriarchy because there's babushka and she's really demanding. But I've never seen that. I always see Russia, generally Russian society is based on this more like stereotypical kind of guy attitude, and that's sort of
yeah.
what runs the show. So I don't know.
Well, if a smart woman knows how to manipulate her man,
Yeah.
and there was a good saying when I was in the military. How does a woman become the wife of a general?
She marries lieutenant.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Western women don't understand that either, by the way. And by the way,
yeah.
if you come over, if you first of all, if you're just coming over to date a Russian woman, as an first of all, I hate that crap. Like, our women aren't whores to be whored out.
Well,
It just
dude, that's one thing that Russian people kind of you guys kind of participate in a lot of that. Like a lot as a foreigner, everyone's like, "Oh, do you like our women?" Like, okay, I can go bang even more of them if you like.
yeah.
It's the Russian culture. I don't understand what here, maybe you can tell me. As a foreign person, okay, you got a Russian guy, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a foreign person. I was born in America. Do you like our women? What does he want from me? What does he want for me to react? Like, what's the reason for this line of questioning? What's the point? Yeah, I'm
No,
straight.
no friggin' idea.
Oh, okay, okay, good.
I never asked that kind of question to anybody.
No, I don't like, because the other thing too is it's just stupid. It's like, okay, so say for example, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of attractive women in Brazil. Okay, you get married to one of them. Do the other ones matter then? Like, who cares? The others, then the other however many millions of them there are out there don't matter once you already found one to be with. So it's just weird. I just don't get that as this like reason to live here, unless you're just a real lecherous sex addict that has to have all women be pretty, or something like that. I don't know.
Oh no,
So.
I don't mind having women pretty. It's better than going out on a
Well,
beach in the
it's good.
U.S.
It's good
where
for
it's
society. Yes, it
yeah,
is. It's good for society for women to be
yes it
feminine,
is.
for us to fulfill our roles and stuff. Yes.
It's much
Yeah.
better than when you have to go and male, female, or what? What am I looking
No.
at? You know?
Yeah, there is a little bit of that in the Moscow metro, especially when you're downtown, but not in the
Yeah,
rest of the
lately,
country.
yeah. But
Uh,
that's a minority thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
Oh,
New
dude, I
York
went
these
to play
days.
a I went to play American football against the Perm Tigers. Man, Perm is the most masculine place I've ever seen. Even the first off, their team has the best physical conditioning of any team I've ever played against here. And secondly, just the normal people there are everyone is jacked. Everyone. All I don't know, there must be some kind of like something in the water, but like, I got off the game and I was walking to go buy something to drink, and there were just kids like dragging radiators, I guess out of boredom. I'm like, wow, these kids are on a way different level than kids in Moscow. Just filthy white kids dragging radiators and shit. Like, man, that's one way to play. Just 50-kilogram radiator, just drag it one handed at 6 years old or whatever. Ugh. So yeah,
Ah.
people outside of Moscow are definitely built different.
Oh
So
yeah, well, Russia outside of Moscow is built different. It's like going to New York, You get out of New
yeah,
York.
yeah, yeah. There's a
Uh,
lot of
oh
that. So
yeah,
yeah,
Americans, I know them. I have lived in New York for half a year. Dude, you don't
yeah.
know Jack, Or it's like going to Paris. Right, yeah, that's the French. Right, that's the French.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you definitely get, and that's another thing too with it. What again, on sort of the other side, when a lot of Western foreigners come here and they, everyone has the right to show the side of Russia they want. I think it's good. We're making a lot of videos. There's a lot of bloggers right now showing what Russia's like, but I kind of don't like when a lot of people are like, Russian culture is the Bolshoi theater. It is the theater and the ballet. I'm like, that is true for a small percentage of society. Like I don't know. It is a part of the culture, but I don't really think that that's what you need to say is Russian culture. It's just a part of it,
It's a
perhaps a
part
very
of it.
small part. Uh,
Well, if you're talking Bolshoi, it's a very
because
small part, considering how much
the
the tickets cost
majority
there
of the
these
people
days.
I know,
The tickets of the
oh,
Bolshoi are
that I don't know. I don't know. Uh, I like Ivan Grozny share a skepticism of the theater, and so that is definitely not my thing. That is Russia's first and eternal gay bar, in my opinion. So not interested.
No, I like opera, but yes, ballet is yeah. And it came over from post-Renaissance Europe, and in all of its
Yeah. Well, one
stuffed
thing I
sock in
can
the
say is we
crotch
actually
greatness.
we actually many years ago filmed about the ballet, and there was this guy who had super ultra thin guy, like he looked like that shaman singer but even skinnier, and they're all dancing around, and I was kind of like, and everyone is a little bit like this even though they speak Russian. And then at the end of it, we were filming about the life of this really famous ballerina, and she's like, well, yeah, me and I don't know what his name was, Ivan and I, we're getting married. I was like, so inside of me I was like, what? What? It's like he's like, I'm a real man's man. This is my bitch now. We're gonna get married and have a bunch of fucking kids. Like I was like, wow, that blew my mind. So who knows? Maybe also I do know one guy who does work in the theater, and he is the most like lecherous skirt chaser I've ever met. So that's another thing that also blew my mind. I was like, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the theater in Russia is this bastion of pretty heterosexuality. I don't know, but yeah,
I think the
blew my
accent,
mind.
the lisp is more like a career-centric type adjustment. You know?
Well, I
Okay,
don't.
before you start dancing, 6 months of
Yeah,
lisp training.
something like that. But yeah, but they got married and stuff, and I guess at some point she's gonna have kids, but that's gonna be the end of her ballet career.
Oh
So
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. But that was like 5 or 6 years ago we filmed that, so maybe she's already done because ballerinos don't last long. So maybe she's already
Oh.
mom.
You ever look at their
Hopefully.
feet? You ever look at their feet? They
Yeah,
really
yeah,
don't last
yeah.
long. Jeez.
Burnout. So to be honest, I think it's actually worse than American football because there are no 40-year-old ballerinas, but my 40-year-old ass is still out there. So
There's not even third string 40-year-old better. Though there are,
nah, nah.
I watched, whose was it? It was either London or New York had the 200 kilo plus ballerinas. That was,
Oh,
that was
that I don't
interesting.
know. Man, that's a lot of strain on your heart.
That's a lot of strain on a guy that she jumps and has to catch.
Oh, yeah, that too. But
By the way,
Wow.
you can hear the vertebrae just go. I'm gonna get
Well, yeah,
fire.
this whole fat acceptance thing is ridiculous. And I'm glad in Russia we don't accept that.
No.
That's it's just madness. You can't. I'm actually only a little bit overweight. Got to have that offensive line body. I'm trying to lose weight, to be honest. But and even me, I'm kind of feeling like, yeah, I'm a little overburdened here. I need to lose weight. I don't know how people can be morbidly obese like that. You very rarely in Russia see someone who's like truly like that kind of fat. You
Well,
see plenty of pot
yeah.
bellies, but you don't see people like that very rarely.
And I can't. I hate the pod bellies. Like, dude, just go stop drinking the beer and go have a run, or just go do something. Walk more.
Well, I'll tell
It's
you one thing. The problem is, how do American football players in Russia celebrate? Immediately 3 beers. So they can burn all those calories, but then it's just all goes to beer. So yeah, it's a little bit of a problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about the
Oh,
average.
the more
There's
normal
quite a
guy.
few pod bellies walking around these
Yeah.
days, unfortunately, and that's mostly beer. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, the morbid obese people. If you look at it, the ones that push the body acceptance, most of them don't live very long, and most of those guys they rotate pretty quickly because they heart gives out, everything gives out. It's just
Oh
how it is.
yeah. I mean, it's yeah, it does. It puts a lot of strain on people. And yeah, I mean, there's plenty of already dead fat acceptance bloggers, but yeah. Um, what can you say?
We're almost out of time. You want to
Oh
continue?
no,
I'll,
really?
I'll send you another invite, and we'll
Oh,
continue.
okay. We'll do part two then. If you still got
Yeah.
questions for me, I'm ready and I'm here.
Oh,
All
any
right.
second now, this will just go click.
Okay. Well, then
Any
anyways, I'm
second
gonna go
now.
click on my own terms. All right. See you soon.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're
Go.
back. Part two.
All right.
By the way,
Part two.
before we forget, and I do want to talk some more about your project.
Yeah.
Before we forget, there is another way to get Russian citizenship that's actually pretty quick. Two ways. Two ways. One's relatively low risk, but the other one's relatively high risk. Now, the low risk, we'll go with the low risk. You can go and take an exam, the carrier of the Russian language, носитель русского языка.
Mhm.
If you pass this exam, and they're given once a month. Now, if I've taken one semester of Russian, you ain't gonna pass this exam.
No.
Let's just begin with this. What the exam is, there's only two parts of this exam. The first part is you listen to a 30-minute video on some topic, documentary video, and then you fill out questions about the documentary. Now, as a Russian who took this exam, with my wife and my oldest daughter, as in fact, too. She was already over 18. And what I told them was the moment, and it was about Christmas in Russia or New Year's, how New Year's
Yeah.
came to Russia, celebration under Peter Great. I told them, take notes. But it's all in
Uh-huh.
Russian. I don't give a damn. Take notes. You're not
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
remember most of this crap. You're only watching it once, 30 minutes, and then now you're answering questions. And thank God we took notes because if you, as a Russian speaker, as a native Russian speaker, if you're not taking notes, you ain't going to pass it.
Well, yeah, 'cause
If
it's
you don't,
long. Yeah.
it's long. It's 30 minutes. And they're gonna ask you all kinds of crap out of that video. So
Yeah.
if you can't watch a 30-minute video, understand it, and be able to regurgitate it. I mean, just to regurgitate to somebody, you're not gonna pass. And when you're doing it, you've got to take notes. And then there's a speaking portion where they interview you.
Yeah.
The short
Well,
portion.
remember, dude, like, but I don't know, even then, if you have a really strong accent, they're not going to consider you a native speaker.
Well, it depends on the person. It totally depends
Mhm.
on who you're interviewing with. Um, so yeah, there is a portion, there is an option of that they may not,
Okay.
but it's very depending on the people you're interviewing with. And those of you who think that you're going to be taking the exam and just buying the exam, which was an option because it went private. It's now going back to government issue Russian language exams only
Yeah.
because of the corruption that instantly appeared, selling Russian language tests. So that's one. Once you get that, you can file for Russian citizenship. It used to be you have to give up your previous citizenship, but you don't have to do that anymore. So within 2 years, you have to file for Russian citizenship. So it's a pretty
Mhm.
fast and straightforward, but you've got to be really decently fluent in Russian.
Yeah,
Not
you have
be
to be
I can
top
read it
tier.
right. you have to be almost, I won't say you have to be a native level speaker, but you've got to be somewhere close enough that again, it's a 30-minute
Mhm.
video that you're going to be watching. The other way that you can get instant Russian citizenship in 3 months,
Yeah.
sign up for the military service.
Yeah.
Once you finish your basic training, it's not like in the US. In the US, you have to serve 5 years before you get American citizenship. In
Yeah.
Russia, you cannot serve in the military if you're not a Russian citizen. So once you finish basics training, you take your oath of service, you get your citizenship. And it
Mhm.
doesn't matter if you don't speak Russian. I know I did an interview with an English bloke who pieces word. He's got really basic Russian, or after a year of service. Well, he's already got his citizenship. He's been on the,
Mhm.
but he's been fighting. So just understand, more than likely, you do that, you're gonna get to see action.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you
And
and your
even if you
family get
don't, like I
citizenship.
tell people, if you're not the toughest person you've ever met, don't join the Russian military. You're not ready for it because everyone thinks it's going to be like this weird daycare center with cute uniforms. And that's not how it is, especially during a time of war. But
Oh,
even outside of that, man, I did this reality show. It was in 2014 or 2015, whenever, like a little bit after the Crimea returned back home. And yeah, so I did 1 week in the Russian military, and it was just a nightmare. I am not built for it, and I think the average person is definitely not built for it either. It's tough, real tough.
well, yeah, it's tough. I mean, I did 11 years of service
Mm.
in the U.S. Army back when it was tough.
Yeah.
It was already degrading. Right now, what the U.S. military is right now is a joke. So
Mm.
if all the Rambos out there, if you think you're gonna come fight Russia with NATO, yeah, you'll come fight. Good luck getting out alive. Short of surrendering.
Yeah, it's not especially right now. Not going so well. But anyways, did you have some other questions about this whole American Village
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
or
So
yeah?
let's go back because we went way off. We went so far,
Ah, it's all right.
yeah,
That's where the fun is.
into outer space field.
All right.
So okay, so the American Village, is it an actual, is it just a lot of land? Is it a neighborhood that's being built? Is it a neighborhood that's ready to be built?
Yeah.
How does a person go around about this?
Well, unfortunately, the whole plan of to build in this sort of separate mini city didn't go through because the cost of getting electricity put in became insanely high. The electric company Mosenerga was completely unwilling to budge, and the amount of money was insane. And although I did find an investor who was willing to pay for the cost of all the different bureaucracy, which is going to wind up being like 2 million rubles to get the land subdivided and all this other stuff. Once that cost came in for the juice, I couldn't do it. So we had to change plans. And so rather than being its own separate cool city, which is, kind of heartbreaking, we found a dacha community where there was a lot of land left to buy, and it's in a really nice location, and it's really well organized, and it's right by the Istrinsky water reservoir, so it's right by the big old lake out there. And so yeah, when I saw it, I was like, well, this is better because, like, I was actually just telling someone before this, they were yelling at me, well, why did you move it? That's dumb. Why did you move the project? I was like, well, hooking up electricity to what we're trying to build cost 36,000 rubles around the Istrinsky water reservoir. To do the project in Serpukhov would cost 400 million rubles. So there you go.
Sorry, sorry, sorry.
36,000 or 400 million, your choice.
400 million rubles.
Yeah, that's what the initial one. Later, I filed a formal complaint and it was dropped to 179 million. But after that, I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to get this down because the initial deal, although certain people in the government say they heard things differently, and I don't think that they're telling the truth, was that they told me, oh, well, this is actually we're gonna get you the electricity goes to the territory, like the edge of the territory, and then when you start building, you're gonna have to expand the electricity, which actually isn't that expensive because getting a transformer really doesn't cost that much money in
No, it
Russia, which is
doesn't.
pretty crazy. They're not super expensive. Getting installed isn't crazy expensive. So that actually would be a viable sort of cost thing. But no, I was promised that going up to the land would be 0 rubles, going up to the edge of the territory for electricity. Then all of a sudden I get a bill for 400 million. It's like, well, okay, whatever. And then that's when the project had to change. To be honest, I really should have taken, the government offered some little plots of land that were like failed dacha communities that were much, much smaller. But I kind of wanted to go big with this thing. I wanted to go crazy and go big. And I probably just should have taken that like a long time ago and taken like 10 plots of land and just went with it. But, you know, hindsight's 2020.
Now, the community that I live in,
Yeah.
when we built the community, well, the lots were sold off. We
Mm.
ran at our expense. I mean, everybody, part of buying the land was paying in for utilities. So we ran the utilities up and down the roads, gas and everything else,
Yeah.
and electricity. So yeah, we paid for the transformers at the
Hmm.
edge of the territory.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it was, well, granted, this was 2013, so it's 30 to 1. Well, I think it came out something like about $10,000 per person.
Yeah.
Oh, per,
That's
per house.
well,
But
yeah,
that
I mean
also
you're kind
ran
of
gas and that also ran water.
oh, that's a whole okay. Well
Yeah,
that's
the
a whole
whole,
that's more reasonable then, yeah.
yeah.
So
There was,
I'm actually waiting for this house to finally get connected up to gas because apparently they're going to gasify basically everything around Chekhov. So I am waiting for that, and I am willing to pay whatever minor cost it's going to be it 300, $500. It'll be worth it to get the thing set up, but that's not a real priority. But about the American Village, we found a place, that had land for, still has a lot of land for sale, and they have everything. The gas is there, the electricity's there, they have their own sewer pipes, they have their own security. And so, yeah, so that's the problem is that initially the American Village was supposed to be a really pretty speaking Russian, like economy grade project where the land should have in theory been free, and then you have to install your utilities and build the little houses. And I thought, this might be in the, who knows, like 6 million ruble range or 5 million ruble range per house or something like that. But ultimately, it's really gone up there. It's more in the like 14, 15, 16 million ruble range for the land and the house and the whole shebang in one, you know? And so that winds up being what, like $150,000. And only a few people have bitten so far because it is much more expensive than initially planned. But what can you do? That's the realities of things. The government was unwilling. And I've talked to the governments about this project. I've talked to the government of course, the Moscow region, where it is, the Novgorodskaya region. I believe there was a conversation without me in Nizhny Novgorod, in Bashkortostan. They were more willing to help with this, but still, the way the Russian laws are, you don't give foreign people free stuff. That's just the way it is. So it's like they could give me land around Bashkortostan and maybe help out with electricity. But again, when it comes to construction, I don't know anyone out there. That would be my problem. So, with the whole sort of thing of foreign people deep down really just want to live around Moscow and St. Petersburg. And I know a guy who runs a construction company in the Moscow region who I trust, and we have a really good relationship with the powers that be in Rosatrudništvo and the Moscow regional government through Timur. That sort of like culmination of factors made me just say, okay, Moscow region. Oh, I also went to see not the governor of the Kaluga region, but like one of the county heads. He wanted to do the project, but again, no one was willing to put money into it. They were just like, here, use this land, but build it up on your own money and bring a lot of foreigners here and that's not kind of how the world works, you know?
well, yeah, they'll give, well, listen, getting the land is already 50% of the issue.
Yeah, yeah,
Once you
yeah.
get that. But yeah, I mean, but then again, if you look at it, and no European country and place like that, you're not even going to get land for free. I mean,
Yeah, 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 exactly.
the land will cost you your next three generation of kids.
Yeah, from what I've heard from German people, yeah, you're in Germany, you don't buy anything anymore. You got to be either lucky or you're renting till you die. At least that's what the German people I know have told me.
Well,
So,
that's always been that way in Germany, though. I
uh,
lived in Germany when I was in the military, and everyone I talked to, it's interesting. But Germans are very interesting. That less than about a third of the Germans actually own the property that they live in. but they could rent the same property from the same owner for 30 years, 40 years.
Mhm. I see.
Why don't you just buy it at that point or go buy your own? Oh, yeah, it's responsibility and all that. It's like,
Oh, that goes back to the whole we were talking in the previous segment. Passivity.
oh yeah,
Dude, I want to take as much real estate as I can, so I have at least my, an empire with my last name on it. You know what I mean, to pass down to my kids and all that. So yeah, I may have a really, really shitty house, but I own it lock, stock, and barrel. You know what I
yep.
mean? So, and a second house that's even worse, and an apartment in Moscow, and blah blah blah, and so on and so forth. So yeah,
So yeah, yeah, there you go. Um, Buying, by the way, one of the biggest issues, first of all, as far as foreigners, there is a nice little enclave of foreigners, and not just Americans, but just foreigners in general, up in Pereslavl,
Zaleski. Yeah, yeah,
Zalesky, which is about 2.5 hours north of Moscow. It's
yeah,
it's almost a midway point between Moscow and Yaroslavl. Nice
yeah.
city,
It kind of
Yaroslavl.
is. Yeah, yeah.
But they're all unique in that they're all handicraft people. They're like
Oh,
different. If you go up there, there's an American priest. Maybe that's the one you're talking about.
yeah. Father Joseph. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He's
Father
up there.
Joseph. He's up there. He's got his own Orthodox church, or at least he does some of the services in there because there's so many foreigners, Western Europeans that got up there. But they're all handicraft
Yeah.
people, different, blacksmiths, painters, things like that, artistic
Yeah, yeah.
types. So it's a little mini community that's formed up there. Right? So it's pretty interesting. But that's one of those unique, more or less unique things. There's
Yeah. That's kind of like how, in a lot of ways, like when the Russian government, so like, we talked a lot about what foreigners expect from Russia and all this other stuff. But sort of the opposite thing is a lot of times when you talk to government officials, they really want people to come here and farm. And the thing is, like,
Yes.
I try to tell them, I'm like, well, you have to understand that, yes, the United States is a big country with a big population, true, but only 2% of the population works in agriculture.
Yep.
So when you look at like a generic person who wants to move to Russia, the odds are they're not a farmer. And so the government's always kind of like, you can't you just kind of like stir up and order us some farmers? I'm like, that's human beings aren't really orderable. So yeah. So that's
Well,
definitely what the regions when they talk to me, they really would like to have people come here and farm. That's number one.
right.
Why that's number one, I don't quite know, but that's what gets the government excited.
Well, probably because there's about 200 million acres of land that needs to be farmed. That's
Oh, are there? Hey, yeah, I guess that is, we already got plenty of people working in offices and stuff. Why not so but
I'll tell you,
um,
because number one, Russia is already a powerhouse as far as agriculture, and the plan is to make it grow,
yeah.
and literally make it grow. Two, the land that's follow, it doesn't earn the government any money. It's not
Yeah.
economically being used. The
Yeah.
government actually has to spend money to maintain it, forest fire, keep criminals off of it, so on. And you can't get any taxes off of land that the government owns. It can't tax itself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got nothing to do with as far as to do with
Yeah.
that land. If you can get some kind of economic activity going on it, farming. And you're absolutely right. Now, there's a couple of videos, some Happy Acres, a couple of families like that have come out there, and local governments, uh, big families, five,
Yeah.
6, 10 kids, and the governments and they're not Orthodox, a lot of them, but they're Canadians, Americans, others, Australians. The local governments are helping them set up, but that's
Yeah,
local government
like
dependent.
what I was talking about the Kaluga region,
Mhm.
that's exactly the sort of situation you described where like a lot of the people left in the 90s. So there's this like I believe it's called Masalsk is the place, and
Mhm.
it's this little tiny town. And the problem is that none of the people there could take out a loan to like experiment and like, build their own farm, but there's so much land there, it's crazy. So I get what you're saying. But about like with foreigners and farming, one thing about all that the Russians don't see is that all that's really organized and worked out in the past. And usually these people have almost always already have experience, with the
Right.
exception of Justice Walker. He kind of came here with very little experience. He did it on his own. But all the other ones, like the media makes it seem like they just came here and clicked their fingers and they got this free farm from the Russian. No, 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 no. It's because they proved they were capable farmers and
Right.
that they had the know-how and this, that, and the other. And yeah, and generally they probably didn't get the farm. They got a loan agreement to actually get the farm when they attain citizenship. That's
Right.
probably what actually is happening behind the scenes. That's usually how that goes. But no one reports that because the reporters here are 20-year-old women and they don't care.
Exactly. There's a lot of truth in that.
Sorry, it's just true. They're not. They're
There
like,
is. There's a lot.
what gets. They're like, it's emotions, it's feeling. People are coming here. They're changing their lives. That's what excites them. And I'm excited. But what about the bureaucracy of the immigration process? What about the bureaucracy? That's where I get excited. So yeah.
Yeah, I get excited. My blood pressure goes up.
Oh.
My mother's putting in for citizenship, so I'm back dealing with UFMS. That's always
Oh.
fun.
Ho,
Yeah,
ho.
the very word UFMS, and my blood pressure starts to go up.
No, my God, yes, those four letters. They're burned into the soul of every English speaking person in Russia somewhere. Oh,
Not just English. It's
yeah.
anybody that ever had to deal with
Anybody's yeah. Like I
Trust
tell
me.
people, because it's the God's honest truth. It's the only place in Russia I've seen an adult man cry.
I don't think I've ever cried, but I've actually kept repeating myself. If I kill him, I'll go to jail, and my family will lose. If I kill him, I'll
Yeah.
go to jail, and my family. Yes. I'm an alpha male, so it's the opposite
Yeah.
effect. It's like, okay, what can I use for a weapon here? There's plenty of options.
Yeah.
Okay, stop. I gotta stop. I gotta come down because they'll just close the window on you. Go away. So yeah, Tim's absolutely right. UFMS. Now again, if you want to move to Russia, by all means you can move to Russia. There are ways, but learn patience.
Oh yeah.
When it comes to most things in Russia, you need some patience because that's how it
Mhm.
is. It's not like dealing with the Spanish speaking or Latin speaking countries in manana. Russians aren't like that. They say they're going to do something. They'll more likely they will have it done at the time they say they're going to do it. It's not going to be manana. But when it comes to bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy you will be dealing with is immigration. If it comes to the bureaucracy of registering your house, it's easy as all. It used to be hard. They got these document centers all over the place. You go in there, people are nice. They'll take you the documents that you need. They'll do all the stuff for you. I was shocked the first time I went through. It's like, wow,
Mhm.
why on the same planet? Yes, I still am.
Yeah.
But the immigration services don't have that.
No.
No.
It's
No,
it's
no,
a it's
no.
a fight for survival. That's why if anyone's really interested or having problems, contact me after the show. I'll put you into contact with my buddy Timur Bislangurov, the #1 immigration lawyer in Russia. And yes, you're gonna have to pay for his services, but he'll hopefully straighten things out. So yeah.
And I went through it all by myself, though I have good ties. I have good contacts. That helped a
Yeah.
lot. So people that don't have contacts, good contacts, are gonna have problems. I mean, it's just how it is. I had
Well, yeah,
problems
that's
anyways with
yeah.
contacts. So, it's and it's gotten much easier than it used to be. Oh, geez.
Mhm.
UFMS has gotten much easier than it used to be 10, 12 years ago. Then it was
Yeah,
just
it's more. It's the more it gets streamlined, the more there's some sort of also online functions are good. I can tell you one thing though. I sometimes hear from people. They're like, "Well, I'm getting married to this Russian woman. Her cousin knows somebody who works somewhere in the migration services. This will be easy because everyone thinks that in Russia it's easy to bribe everyone. It's like,
no, no,
no,
no, no, no, no.
no, no. That your sister's wife's sister's cousin who mops the floor can't do anything for you.
Yeah.
So
Unless, I mean, flat out, unless you know people with contacts that have stars,
yeah.
you're not going to bribe anybody. First of all,
No.
those days, most of these migration centers are now quite big and centralized, cameras
Yeah.
everywhere, and you're not going to bribe them. And if you're going to
Yeah,
think
I
you're going
think
to
that was
bribe
also
them,
part of the point of why they made them big and open. There's sort of a nowhere to hide, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was. Um, I remember it was a couple of years ago, and couple by about 10. No, I guess no, not 10, about 6 years ago. Went to a migration center to register my mother-in-law who came to visit us. And the lady that helped us, and it was near Christmas time too. So the lady
Mhm.
that was helping us, oh, real nice lady. I mean, she did a lot to actually help. My mother-in-law was like, oh, I need to thank her. So she takes out a small bottle of cognac and hands it to her. And she's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
No, yeah.
First of all, no, they're cameras. Second of all, oh, by the way, there's a bottle of champagne somebody else left me. Have that too. So we walked out. Not only did
Oh,
we
real.
wind up giving a bottle of cognac, we walked out with a bottle of champagne too. Frick.
Yeah.
So no. You're not gonna bribe people. I'm not gonna say
Yeah,
there aren't-
those days are over.
yeah, those days are over. I'm not gonna say there aren't bribes, but bribes, most of the bribes that happen are like in the West. They happen in big boardrooms with very small number of people sitting there
Yeah.
with very large salaries already and on big projects. They don't happen on that level in the migration center, things like that. Because
No.
it's no, it's not. So put that out of the way. That's not gonna happen. So that's not gonna happen. So that's just how that is. So yeah, if you get lawyers, yeah, lawyers will help quite a bit, especially if you don't speak Russian fluently.
Yes. But no one can help you pass the language tests. There's no way around it. There's no winning. Just got to do it. But at least they're easy. So
Yeah, relatively easy. Though they, like I said, they used to be a lot of these guys from Central Asia come in there and they're past the test, and you look at them and they can't piece 3 words together. Like, yeah, you passed the test, I'm sure, but that's gone away too now. It's all centralized.
no.
By the way, one of the big problems too is because of sanctions is getting your money in and out. And here's my little pitch.
Mhm.
For the guys that are helping sponsor this video, Exit Strategy World. And I've worked with them, and I've also been a customer of theirs. So it's they'll help you move money legally. They'll help you move money so you can move, and not just to Russia, to the different parts of the world. If you want to get your money out of high risk zones, which is most of the Western economies these days, into places like Turkey, Dubai, Hong Kong, El Salvador, they'll help you, and they'll help with residency in some of those countries that they can work with. So there.
Well, yeah,
there's
guys, because no
that's
matter
it.
what you do, I think that unfortunately that day when the dollar eventually does kind of bite the dust might be starting to get close here.
Oh,
And
yeah.
right now, the dollar is very strong to the ruble, as in if you would want to do something like the American Villager, who the hell knows, something in Russia that involves your Western money, be it an immigration thing, be it something else, now's the time to strike. Because I think the situation for the dollar is only going to get worse. So that's my 2 cents on this. But then again, my opinion is a little bit biased.
Oh yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Look, the U.S. economy is putting on what, about $1 trillion of debt every 4 months at this point,
Yeah.
and it's the medium short rate percent interest rate is gone up to 5.5, which is the historical norm. And what you're going to have sooner than later, if you look at Greece, you can look at Italy and different countries, is you're going to have a sovereign debt crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when people start looking and going, 5.5%, as much debt as the country has. Nah, that's too much risk. Give me 7. Next guy's gonna go, give me 8. Some other guy's gonna go, give me 10. And that debt, that percentage rate it goes low, 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 and a parabolic curve
Yeah.
straight up. And you're hitting 30, 40%, and that's collapse. Government can't sell the debt, and then the government starts printing even faster to cover up the spending.
And
Then you
that
get
is definitely
hyperinflation.
very, very much like the Greek scenario. And also, Greece has never recovered from that.
No.
Not yet. And they probably won't until they get a completely new banking system and a completely new government with a very different attitude. Because, anyways, that's a real sad story that I think we've covered on my channel. I hope we have. But at least in the past, I know I've covered it because I've talked to a few experts about it. But anyways, do you have any more questions about the American Village, or is it bedtime here?
Well, it should be bedtime, but I've still got a ton of work to do after it, so it's not bedtime yet. Well, anyways, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what do they need to do?
What can they do? Okay, well, first off, the website is americanvillages.ru. I just finally got the domain fixed today. That was a real pain in the butt. So americanvillages.ru. And if you go online, if you're on Telegram, Telegram is an amazing place. You should use it. Our group is called American Village Serpukhov, and it'll say official. The problem is it used to be in Serpukhov, so I gave it a bad name. So t.me/American Village Serpukhov, spelled without the stupid K in Serpukhov. There you go. So you'll find it, hopefully. But yeah.
So there you go. So, anyways, if and the good news is there's actually the government's looking at a lot of immigration reform. There's a lot of different bills that are in Parliament that are being discussed now. The West has a tendency of any bill that hits Russian Parliament, it's a law, it's the law, it's the fact. Oh, this is how it is.
Oh yeah, or the
And that's-
classic Putin signed this. Putin signs a lot of stuff. That doesn't mean he created it. It just means that, that drives me nuts. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of stuff where they say, "Oh, this is how it is." No, that's usually it's an idea. Some member of parliament farts out some stupid idea, and the West is ready screaming, "That's the law in Russia." The vast
Oh, yeah.
majority of the ideas don't make it past that bad
Especially
smell.
Vitaly Milonov. That guy loves to say questionable ideas. That's his
Yeah.
job.
Yes, he does.
But
He puts the
anyway, so
trial
yeah,
balloon
so
up.
so and also it's kind of shocking. It's almost like in Russia they kind of want to run certain ideas past the public. It's as if they might kind of care about public opinion, as if. So yeah, can't
Don't
say that in the Western media. No,
don't
no,
give the
no,
peasants in the West any ideas. Right. I even heard, but I mean, these are Russians, so we Russians are primitive. I
Uh-huh.
mean, we are. We're absolute vulgar, barbaric, and primitive. We even read every bill that goes through 3 times before quorum
I
of
see.
parliament. 3 times it has to be read.
Mhm.
And this is how barbarians live their lives because we're uncivilized.
Mhm.
Every change in that bill gets posted on the internet under the parliament's website, so you can actually go read the actual bill. Whenever somebody tells you, "Oh, this bill's all of this," no, you go actually read it and go, "Well, actually,
Mhm.
no, it doesn't do any of that." And every other
Yeah.
change that goes into it. Yeah, I mean, I
Mhm.
know, we don't run like civilized Western countries, but what can I say?
Yeah.
We don't
Well,
have 10,000-page omnibills.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, I forget about that. Yeah, no omnibills with their magical 3 words that can change people's lives somewhere hidden in all those pages. But
Hey, what
yeah.
about writers? Remember the writers?
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyways, there are a lot of advantages to Russia. There's still some problems here, but we're working on those. It's the one thing I'll tell people though is overall, it's kind of nice to live in a country where you sometimes, a lot of times, feel like more or less you're headed in the right direction. That is a lovely feeling. Because with the United States, again, I kind of diss on the United States a lot, but that's only out of, let's put it this way. I wish it wasn't the case because I felt like, especially as a teenager, it's just like when I was still in America, you're like, how much can we shoot ourselves in the foot as a society? We've got all this money. We've got all these great industries. We've got all this gigantic media. And we do this and that. We do everything. What are we doing to ourselves? But unfortunately, uh, I certainly lost that battle. But yeah, so from that feeling, it's nice being here where more or less things kind of seem to be going in kind of more a bit, yeah, the right direction. And that's a nice feeling.
And two issues. First of all, and unfortunately, very much unfortunately, Russia still has relatively strict gun laws. So you're not
Yeah.
going to be able to pack a 9 millimeter in your under your uh, belly. What are those things
Mhm.
called? The little pouches that they
What do you mean, like a holster?
no. The thing in the 90s and in the
Oh, the
1000s.
fanny pack.
Fanny pack. That's it. That's what it.
Yeah.
You can't pack a pistol in your fanny pack, and you can't. First of all, if you're not a citizen, you can't own firearms. Period.
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
firearm,
no,
yeah, firearm
no.
ownership is regulated. You have to buy a smoothbore rifle first for a certain amount of time. Then you can get a rifled rifle.
Yeah.
Pistols are not available for the average person.
Only the ones that fire the rubber bullets.
Yeah,
But yeah.
air
So.
pistols. They're basically
Well, I'll
high
put it this
compressed air
way.
pistol.
There is cause for hope because there is a decently large gun community in Russia. And I know for a fact that legendary media mogul billionaire Konstantin Malafeyev is a huge fan of guns and has a lot of them and owns gun ranges. So there is hope. The
Oh.
one major media player, but I usually when you look at the stuff he promotes, it's usually I'll put it this way: it's kind of like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And unfortunately, the way Constantine sees the world, well, unfortunately, hold on, I said that badly. Unfortunately, from the standpoint of people who are really into guns, the base of everything is Christianity. That's really what he's trying to promote. Then the economy, but I think somewhere he'll eventually get to his love of guns. So we have a lot of hope, a lot of faith in Constantine that he'll eventually get the job done. But for now, it's Christianity and economy. That's usually his two big talking points in all the media he funds. So
I've come out on his on Tsargrad quite a few times.
yeah,
Quite a few times.
great project.
It is a great project, and that's another thing about faith, especially for the Christian faith. It's not uncommon. You'll get on a bus, and the bus driver will have an icon of Christ right beside him,
Yeah.
or same thing on planes and that. That's not banned, and there were attempts to do that, and that had a lot of backlash.
Oh yeah.
So this isn't the West where you can't talk about your being Christian or anything of that sort. Now you're not going to have brickyard preachers out there screaming, "You're all going to hell."
Well, yeah.
That's not going to
Well, yeah,
fly.
because proselytizing is considered socially destabilizing. So yeah, that's a no go.
Yeah.
But
No, you
yeah,
can have a talk with somebody like, hey, Tim, if you're interested, I'll tell you
yeah,
about the Orthodox faith. You can do
yeah.
that, but you can't do that out on a courtyard screaming at people and things like that you'll see in the U.S. Places like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's not going to fly.
Yeah.
But Christianity is not a bad thing. That is actually the main thing. The majority of the population, though actual regular churchgoers, I think like about 25% of the population.
Yeah.
Uh,
But it's growing and
it
changing.
is.
So everything's going in the right direction. So like I said, this whole restoration of Christianity is kind of the base of our pyramid of what we're trying to do here in Russia. So that is more important. But guns and all that kind of good stuff that'll come eventually. Although I would have to say, well, one thing Russia does have nailed the tax system and
Hmm.
private property.
Yeah.
That we have just nailed perfect the way it is. It's the Republican dream, as I call it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, guns. Yeah, it's a pity with guns. That really is. Because I do like guns. So, and an armed
Yeah,
society is a polite society.
you're darn right. Well, anyway, Stas, I think it's about time for me to hit the hay. Do you got anything else more for me, or we're gonna sign off here?
Well, I guess we can sign off. Questions, when am I going to see you over here with the kids, meet my kids?
Oh boy, that's I don't know. What are their ages?
Well, my youngest is 8.
8 is the youngest. Oh, that's actually pretty good. I will begin the process of working on that. What are their hobbies?
Hey, 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 all depends on which one you're talking about.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, we'll
Well,
talk
I
off
won't
air
discuss
about
that
that.
online, though. I'll
I will.
discuss that offline.
I'll get going on the planning for this, the setup. All right. Okay.
Yeah, there's a little too much information to leave online.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, just like people knows, my kids become quite the soccer star, but I never like to say exactly what team he plays for, where he trains. No, that information stays with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But but anyways, man, I was great talking to you, and I hope that for
Same.
anyone who's getting interested, AmericanVillages.ru, or you can find me on Telegram. I think my actual Telegram should be public at Tim Kirby Russia. That's my actual me. And there's a project called Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore on Telegram, which is my Telegram channel. You can see my terrible humor and terrible political opinions. There you go.
And no, it doesn't mean hardcore like it. Okay.
No, not in a pornographic sense, in a passionate sense, in a Cleveland pride sense. Yeah.
And no car burning.
No, not yet. Not yet. Although the second house I own is so awful that one day I am kind of tempted to just burn it down just to get rid of it. It's gonna cost so much money to remove it. Oh man. I just let it work, let it rot under the rain for now.
Lightning strikes,
To be
bum
honest, I
crawls the
kind of wish
back.
it would. So the main house is nice. That piece of junk over there, nah.
Okay. Maybe we can help you out with that.
Ooh, fun times. A real
All right.
barbecue. All right, Stas. Talk to
Hold
you
it for the
soon,
whole
man.
cow.
All right. All the best. Signing out.
Cheers.
Later, man.